Welcome to Finance Leaders Retirement Insights, the broadcast where we sit down with thought leaders in the world of finance who reveal their unexpected wisdom on the issues impacting retirement.
Welcome to the Finance Leaders Podcast. This is the show where we highlight the stories, insights, and expertise of financial professionals who are making a lasting impact on their clients and the financial industry. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with
Stephan Shatarah.
Can you share a bit more about your background and what inspired you to pursue a career in the financial planning instead of following your father's footsteps? Maybe you can expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so born and raised here on Long Island. Was just your average suburban kid growing up, and of course, as I got into the middle of high school, my parents would ask me what I wanted to do for a living, and I had interest in music, I had interest in business, but they wanted me to become an engineer, and I conformed to what they wanted. I went to college to become an engineer for 1 week, took one class, and said, this is definitely not for me. So I went to business school. And while I was in school for business, I actually worked for my parents after helping them with some filing and what have you at the family business. And a financial advisor walked into the office and basically told me that if I could put $50 away every paycheck from the age of 19 to 65, that I'll have around $1 million. And my eyes lit up, and it wasn't with greed. It was actually it was like an aha moment where I said, I think I know what I want to do for a living. I want to help people. I want to help business owners save for their future. I've watched my parents, they're immigrants coming to this country, and I've watched them go through some struggles, but also some great successes. And I know that having a financial advisor in their corner allowed them to save for not only myself and my 3 other siblings, but for their futures as well. And that, to me, was an inspiration into becoming a financial advisor.
Awesome. I loved all the stories. Always a different story with advisors, how they got into it, but a lot of times it has to do with family and things. So listen, every advisor kind of has a unique philosophy that drives the way that they work. How would you describe the core philosophy and when it comes to helping your clients achieve their financial goals?
Yeah, so for us, I believe our core philosophy is relationship. And with that comes listening, assessing, analyzing, and then from there, we're able to give a recommendation. More often than not, we're meeting clients through either education, social media, or referrals, right? Whether it's from a center of influence like a CPA, or our existing clients, or even family and friends. And quite often, the trust is built in because it's a referral or we're providing some kind of value. And our role as advisors is to listen to their words, right? Talk less, listen more about their goals, their aspirations, what they're looking to accomplish, what they've accomplished thus far. And it's our job to take all that input and basically give them a recommendation to help them enhance their situation for whatever the case may be, whether it's protecting their family, growing their assets, taking income, maybe taking advantage of tax smart savings plans for their businesses, and so on. So I want to say relationships. That has I said a lot of words there, but building the relationship with our clients is really our core philosophy, and we stick by that.
Yeah. So, I mean, when clients come to you, they're often, facing some type of a challenge and uncertainty in their life, especially around their finances. How do you really help them to move from essentially where they are to their ideal financial goals? I mean, that's really what financial planning is about.
Absolutely. That's an excellent question. Big part of our role as a financial planner is to solve problems, right, and provide solutions. So when people come to us, usually there's 2 things in mind: either a goal or there's an issue, or there's some type of confusion. So again, I'm going to go back to the relationship. We build the relationship and we listen, right? We'll listen to what their concerns are. where they're at today and then where they want to be in the future. And we compartmentalize and give them a step-by-step plan. We at Dandara Wealth Management, we have a six-step um, program called Dandara Go. And the first step is essentially the discovery process. I feel that when people um, express themselves, right, in our first meeting, it often runs over an hour because there's a lot of conversation, not necessarily about their assets and finances, but it's really about them and their beliefs and their goals and their experiences. And, there's a reason why that they're meeting with us today. And, we'll listen to that and I think after that conversation, I wholeheartedly believe after that conversation that there's a sense of relief from the prospective client to kind of just let it all out, right? Let it all out. And I think that's, probably the first, that's the first step, if you will, right? Is just acceptance and letting out what the issues are. It's our job to listen to it as a non-biased third party. So that way we can say, all right, here, I want you to save X amount of dollars. I want you to put away this much to pay down your debt. I want you to, de-risk on this portfolio or take more risk on this portfolio. And here are the programs that we have for you. And as a result, I believe it's confidence, it's de-stressing, the prospective client, and then building that relationship again, so that way they can always refer to us when other things come forth in their life.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned, the biggest thing is what most people need to realize when it comes down to financial planning is that often they cannot see the forest from the trees. I mean, they're right there. The one analogy, I'm not much of a golfer, but people say that if you're playing golf and you're holding the club and you're swinging the club, you can't see what you're doing incorrectly. If somebody's standing from a different vantage point, or they're standing in front of you, they can see exactly the way that your feet are, the way that you hold your hands. And I think the same thing comes down to finances, that most individuals, when they're wrapped up in their finances, they've got their stories, they've got their views, and they believe, essentially, I believe everybody believes they're doing the best that they can, but they don't have that third point of view of looking at it from a little bit different perspective and making sure that what they're doing is really the right things, or what they're doing is going to get them to where they are, because you can take that emotion out of it and really give them an advice, like you said, that's unbiased.
That's a great analogy. I do love golf, and I must say that I've been golfing for almost 5 years, and I'm this close to breaking 100. Um,
Awesome.
I wouldn't be where I'm at, without my friends, and in regards to golf, I wouldn't be where I'm at without their criticism. And I hired a trainer at one point, but
Well,
it's a
it's not necessarily criticism, and I think that's what it comes down to. Nobody likes to be told if you're doing something incorrectly, but
sure,
we need to
sure.
realize that getting advice or having a different view just helps us to really understand where we are at. I tend to look at life from the perspective of we are always kind of at this red dot. Whatever our current situation is where we are at the present time. And all that is just facts. We don't need to feel bad about it. It's just the reality. And that's kind of the raw truth of where we are at. Because if we don't know where we're starting from, we will never get to essentially where we want to go to, what I call the blue dot. It's the desire. And what most people don't understand, they always want to go, well, I want to go here, right? I'm sure we probably have clients that are coming over and saying, hey, I want to have, $5 million, $1 million, whatever that number is. And I think the financial industry keeps on talking about this number, but you alluded to it a little bit that, financial planning is not about, having a certain number at a certain time. There's a lot more that, that goes into it. So, when you're going through this, building trust, obviously, and you mentioned that already, is a major, part of what you do. How do you ensure that your clients kind of feel, heard, valued, and, that they really value, you know, your input as they're going through their whole story, journey, and the stories that they share?
Excellent question. I think the best answer I can give to that is it's hard for me. One, I try to get some confirmations and affirmations along the way. right? And I'll repeat what they said back to me. And if there was somewhat of a miscommunication or if I understood it wrong, which, it can happen at times, then they'll correct me, right? And we have two ears and one mouth for a reason, right? It's to listen twice as much as we speak. So quite often I'll ask questions and I'll just shut up and listen, take notes, and again repeat it back to them. And I think with that there's a transfer of trust where we're listening. Okay, Stephan is listening. He's actively listening to what I'm saying today. And then when I come back with a solution that ties around everything that they spoke about, with whether it's their goals, it's a confirmation that I'm delivering what they're asking for.
Yeah, you brought a very, very important point. Yeah, from the perspective of, you know, when you're listening to somebody and you're talking, you're asking them certain things, it's not about what you say, it's about what's being heard.
Mm-hmm.
And so often in the conversation, I remember from my days when I was a planner and I was helping structured plans, often the conversation starts about money, but it often goes off of that. I tend to tell kind of this framework that, in life, we really have four different type of assets, and financial is just one of those assets. The first asset is core assets. That would be somebody's health, their well-being, family, and values, and things like that, their beliefs. Then they have experiential assets, which are the experience they have, the vocation that they have, the education that they've received. The third asset is kind of interesting because there's two components to it. One of them I would call taxes an asset. And most people go, hold on, what do you mean? Taxes are not an asset. Well, if you structure your finances in a way, you can reduce the amount of tax you pay. Therefore, you can actually choose how much taxes you pay. And then the second one is philanthropy. So, this asset is essentially contributory assets. And then you have financial assets. And often I would ask my clients that, if they, when they were passing off all of these four assets to their children, if they could only pass three of them, they had to let go of one of them, which one it would be. And like 100% of the time, it was finances. And then I would ask, why are we always, as financial planners, talking about finances? Let's have a little bit different situation. And I
Right.
think this is kind of what you alluded before from the perspective of when you listen to your clients, they will tell you a lot more because they're not interested about getting to a certain number. They're interested about living the life that really feels fulfilling, not only now, but also in the future. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely agree. We talked a little bit about family before and how family is the most important thing to us. Why else are we working? Why else are we saving and investing? Right? It's to provide, not only for ourselves, but for our family as well. And
Yeah.
to provide a lifestyle that, we deserve and we desire. And I believe that everyone is entitled to retire with dignity. And with that, just takes a little bit of work along the way, right? Whether it's saving 10, 20% of your income and investing in the right vehicles. That's going to get you from point A to point B. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, I believe it's about the why as opposed to the what.
I agree with you 100%. That's an excellent point. Yeah, because if you don't know the why, what's the point? And
Exactly.
so often, that's why I said I think this is where traditionally the financial industry, and that was part of the reason why I exited out of it. It was all about the number. It was all about save, save, save. Where really the question comes, hey, what can we create? How can we get creative? Because there are many different ways of achieving things. I tend to look at life. There is never kind of a wrong decision or a right decision. There is just a decision that will give you feedback. And the feedback either is favorable to what you're doing or unfavorable to your situation. But the reality is all about how you look at things and how you set things up.
Mhm.
So when you look at the way that you kind of structured your business, what do you believe kind of sets you apart, in your approach apart from others in the industry?
We try to humanize the process. Financial planning can be daunting, to some boring, to some a little too technical. So, going back to our philosophy about relationship, we try to humanize it circle back to the why as to why it is what we're doing, Why are we, why are we saving in a 401k, or why do we purchase this life insurance or college savings plan? And then putting specific goals behind it. And so when we humanize things, we build a relationship, and people tend to want to work with me because of, this might sound a little egotistical, but they want to work with me because they want to work with me. They want to say, I want to work with Stephan or Dominic or Dominic or both of us. So we've built this brand, Dandara Wealth Management, that people can remember. There's our names are involved, are included, and they see it as kind of almost exclusive, if you will. Dominic and I post a lot on social media, and we post financial articles, I mean, almost every other day. Right. And it's important information. And this is vital information for your everyday life, right? To learn. But then we also post personal things about our life and our family and relating to our clients, and being human, as opposed to just being a rigid, stiff financial advisor that's just focused on rate of return and the products, right? I'm going to circle back to it again. It's the relationship that we're building and how we're articulating. And then what that does is it gives the client, there's an exchange of confidence, and then there's an exchange of comfort and relief. And when I feel that, it's very hard to describe in words, but there is a feeling, there is a sense that I get and that I feel from the client, that they said, okay, I can sleep well at night. I know I'm protected. And I know Dandara Wealth Management, Stephan and Dom have our back.
Yeah. I think what you bring it up and what you're really saying is that the finance business is not about finances, it's about a relationship. And the relationship between individuals, but I think even further, a relationship that the individual has with their money, because there will be different ways that people view money depending on how they grow up, what what their family views were on money and around money, and how they're essentially managing that. So you mentioned this before a little bit, success is built on principles, not just tactics. What are some of the core principles that you follow in your business, both how you operate and how you serve your clients?
Yeah, we follow a strict process in regards to retirement planning, where we have principles that we abide by. We like to guarantee our clients with contractually guaranteed income programs. Maybe getting a little technical here with it, but we follow a specific philosophy with building a bucket strategy. So it's giving our clients guaranteed income, having a bucket for growth, having a bucket for the disposable emergency situations. On the alternative side, maybe something that's not correlated to the U.S. stock market, just to give them some diversification. But we stick with those principles of diversification, risk management. We use nitrogen or risk-alize questionnaire to really understand the client's risk and allow them to understand what their risks are. And then that also in turn gives them a report where there's expectations that are set in regards to risk and return, right? And reward. What are you going to get in return for the risk that you're taking? And with that type of communication, there are very little surprises. And we've been very blessed to be in a very strong, stock market and economy over, my entire 10-year, almost my entire 10 years that I've been working in the financial industry. But there were a couple of years where there were down years, and those felt very painful, and people remember those years. And Dominic and I got very small amount of calls about complaints or about concerns, because they understood their plan. And we keep in touch with our clients as we should. So another core philosophy I want to say is communication, service, relationship. I've said that word a lot today. I believe all that is a recipe for success, from a financial planner to client and friend relationship.
Oh, that's great. And you mentioned that your approach essentially emphasized using tools for risk assessment to create personalized plan. Can you maybe go a little bit more in depth how this technology enhances your ability to design, custom strategies for your clients and how it impacts their experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Way back when we used to have a paper questionnaire, you would take their age and subtract it by certain factor, and that would determine their risk. Or you would ask them a question: Are you conservative, moderate, or aggressive? And the clients would have no idea what that means. As a matter of fact, they would go back and ask us, "What do you think I should be?" And I would say, "Well, the average person is this. The average person at your age is moderate to aggressive, whatever the case may be." And then we'd walk away. And then, in a review, they would again question, oh, it's a down year. Why am I down 10%? Or it's a positive year. Why am I up X, Y, and Z? Right. And they would have very little knowledge as to why it is the way they are. When Risk Clause was introduced to us in, I want to say 2022, 2021, I thought it was genius. I said, this is great. This is a 5 to 10 minute questionnaire where it gives the client the steering wheel. Hey, answer your questions to the best of your ability. It made it kind of fun. And then it gives you a risk score from 1 to 99, 99 being the most aggressive and 1 being the most conservative. And when things are scaled, it's very easy to understand and articulate. So then it goes even further, right? Now let's say they own a portfolio, they own a program, they have no idea what they're in. We'll input their exact investments, and it'll tell us their risk score. And quite often there's a disconnect between how they feel and what their investments are. And our goal is to bridge that gap. Say, okay, you're here, your investments are there. Let's find a way to meet in the middle. And then when we give the investment policy statement, it again discloses potential, rates of risk and reward and what have you, and projections along the way, and again gives them expectations, and provides communication. But without this technology, I mean, it's genius. I think it's a great tool. It's a great tool to use, and it stores all the data and everything else. So we love technology, and we're very as a team, we try to be early adapters when we hear about new technological advancements in the financial advisement world, and we try to experiment with it, as often as we can.
Yeah, I think you bring a great point. I mean, I remember a few years back when the whole robo-advisor and everything came in, people thought, okay, that's it. You know what? Advisor is no longer going to be needed. I personally feel that you cannot replace that relationship. And this is what you've mentioned, how your firm is different, that it's all about building that relationship. But I believe that, as you mentioned, there is a great opportunity to use technology, especially now with AI, to enhance the experience, enhance the process of helping clients to feel more comfortable, feel more seen and heard, because you can go and use tools. And again, what I love about technology is one of those things. We're only humans, even though we got 2 years. Sometimes we do miss something. Again, when you have questionnaires or assessments, you know what? Again, all they're doing is they're inputting data without uh, their view, and I appreciate what you mentioned where people would come in the past saying like, well, what do you think I should do? Well, no, hold on, this is about you, and they still would have no idea. Then you give them an idea, and unfortunately, what you're setting up yourself for is for them potentially to blame you because you're the one that gave them the idea. They don't kind of take that responsibility for what they have done. So
Mhm.
having a tool where they can actually learn what really is their current situation. And again, this is kind of the idea of the red dot. Like, where am I right now? All that is just a feedback. And I think, clients need to realize that, yeah, they need to be the ones. And I love the analogy that you used, take hold of their steering wheel. And it's like, hey, this is your car. Really, when you help them do finances, you're not sitting at the steering wheel, they're sitting at the steering wheel. You are the co-pilot. You are just kind of a guide to help them to achieve where they want to go. So,
Absolutely, well said.
what's one of the biggest challenges you see your clients are facing today, and how do you guide them through it?
I I believe the biggest challenge today that my clients are facing is actually inflation. Um, Things are just getting more expensive, whether it's, purchasing your first home, just groceries, gasoline. Well, now gas is cheap, but who knows where it'll be in the next couple of years. There's a lot of challenges when it comes to the income need and where we live on Long Island and the Northeast. Things are quite pricey over here, right? And I believe the challenge is the question rather is, do I have enough money to live my desired lifestyle in retirement? And having that unknown is a challenge to clients. Now, we offer a plan that helps combat it, and we include inflation in there, and we use general averages, and sometimes we um, are more conservative with our numbers, whether it's from a rate of return perspective or an inflation perspective, where we say, hey, this is a worst case scenario or a best case scenario, to give them a couple of different options. But from what I'm hearing today, people need to save more. There's also, pensions are few and far between. And years ago, corporations had pensions. It was guaranteed income. Now the onus is on the client, right? If they're a business owner, they need to create that wealth, right, themselves. They need to find someone, hopefully like myself and Dominic, to open up a plan that's going to get them not only tax credits, but the ability to save for their future. Or B, if they're working in corporate America or non-for-profit company and they have a 401k or 403b, they need to put away enough money to get them to what they need so that way they can live, again, a life of dignity in their retirement years, in their golden years. So I find that to be the challenge. And when we deal with inflation so quickly, in a short amount of time, I believe it's a big shock to especially, people in retirement, heading towards retirement in the next 10 years or so. Um, Working with someone like us tends to mitigate those challenges. And we'll do our best to not only educate them, to give them an actual plan, like a blueprint, if you will, going back to my engineering, drafting and design days, that you always follow the blueprint. You know, it gives them more confidence, but again, it's still a challenge, right? We don't know, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what the world is going to look like in 10 or 20 years, but we try to have an idea. And again, with our guidance, we're not going anywhere. This is a fluid plan. Things change. So when things change in life, that's where we come in to address those changes, right? And as it's easy to look back at the last 20 years and say, I should have done this or I could have done this. It's difficult to forecast the future.
Yeah.
So we do our best to give them the highest probability of success.
Yeah, I mean, nothing stays constant. And, you're talking about inflation. I mean, who would have thought 5 years ago that inflation is going to go as high as it has? I mean, this is where when it comes down to, the plan is really there, and you've just alluded to it, that it's really a guide. It's kind of like, hey, this is the direction we're heading into. And then you need to go and update it. And every year you need to make sure that you're ready, you're still heading in the direction that you want to go, because things do change, plans change, ideas change. And it's a matter of really deciding, hey, am I still heading in the right direction, or do we need to go and make some adjustments or changes to it? So when you work with your clients, how do you help them to identify opportunities that they might not have considered before, especially when it comes down to creating a financial strategy that's really tailored towards their current unique circumstance?
Yeah. So, going back to the discovery process that we have and listening to our clients, we'll often hear keywords and the way they're speaking, and we'll think about a certain vehicle that could make sense for them based on what their desires are. Working with Dan Darrell Wealth Management and Cetera, which who are our broker dealer, in which we clear through, we have programs, open opportunity, tons of opportunity for different programs and open architecture. So there are so many things to pick from, but the way we have some favorite favorites, if you will, that we like to use that we know that work, and we'll tend to deliver based on some of the things that our clients are telling us. If that makes sense. And how we articulate the opportunity is through the actual plan itself, and going back to the philosophy where we use a financial planning software that offers a bucket system, if you will, and we'll go back to that kind of those details and plug them in, and more often than not, clients are hearing this for the first time, so we'll address it. We'll try to simplify things as much as we can.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to, and you've mentioned that there was the planning for the retirement, there is planning for having that guaranteed income, but I believe that big part of the planning is really helping your clients to leave a legacy. So, if you can maybe go in a little bit more detail on a personal side, like what does leaving a legacy mean to you, and how do you help clients to achieve the goals that they have around legacy for them?
That's a great question. Yeah, legacy is quite important to us. Me personally, as a family man, it's important to protect your family first and foremost. But when it comes down to leaving assets behind, we'll speak to the client to make sure that that's a goal, that's what they have in mind. And two, we'll find the best solution for them that's going to leave a legacy in the most tax efficient manner. And with that is quite often life insurance. Assuming the clients are insurable, and they don't often see insurance as a way to leave money behind in a tax efficient manner. So yeah, I think it's super important to leave a legacy, but also plan to leave a legacy if that's something that is a goal of theirs.
Yeah, you mentioned when it comes down to it, again, thinking about a little bit outside of the box from the perspective of it's not necessarily sticking with the traditional solutions or traditional ways of doing things. You, for an example, mentioned insurance. Insurance is just there to go and leverage things. I mean, how can you go and create? You can essentially create a legacy, with one application, and you can
All right.
millions of dollars in behind, and that money is available tomorrow, as opposed to saving for years and years and years. So
Right.
if you could recommend one principle or one key approach for people who want to achieve lasting financial success, what would it be?
Discipline and consistency. That's maybe two, but because
I think they go hand in hand
they
personally,
go hand
because
in
yeah, you need to have both in order to really achieve things. So
absolutely.
yeah, no, again, I think what most people don't realize that where they are right now, and if I can go back to my illustration, the red dot, is
Hmm.
not really the big decisions they have made in life. Kind of like, hey, who am I going to marry? What car, what house am I going to buy? Often when I work with clients, I try to help them understand that where you are right now is because of the small little daily decisions they've made for the last 20, 30, 40 years. And I think this is where, discipline and consistent comes down to. Often clients say, "Oh, Daniel, I've just got a hard time. I'm not disciplined." I said, "You know what? Let me help you to see it from a different perspective. You're incredibly disciplined at doing the things that are not helping you achieve what you're after." So often it's the way that you look at things and what you're doing. And so often I find that individuals, and we talked about this, especially when it comes down to money. Like for me, I grew up I'm originally from Czechoslovakia. I grew up under communism. There was no philanthropy. There was no really wealth building. There was just kind of like go get a job and, work hard for your money. So it was a little bit built in a world of scarcity where I've had to work on the way that I view life and the way I look at things, where like leveraging and things like that, we talked about insurance, often is a very foreign concept to a lot of individuals, but because they didn't, work around that. Like when you look at the Income Tax Act, it's really designed, and going back to what I mentioned earlier, that taxes is an asset because you can actually use the amount of tax or tax that you're paying for your benefit and to help you go and build legacy, build your portfolio, and build your retirement income. And it's really important that you can help clients to kind of navigate and introduce these new solutions to them. So looking back at your career, what's the one lesson that you've kind of learned that really fundamentally shaped the way that you work with clients?
That's an excellent, excellent question. I've been in the business for about 10 years, and I feel that every day I'm learning something new. Um, I try to be as teachable as coachable as I possibly can. I don't have, I know a lot. I don't know everything. So I do my best to speak to gentlemen, people like yourself, to learn, right? And to speak about my experiences and what have you. And I think that also creates a little bit of creates kind of the gears going, if you will. Um, and I guess similar to a client, I don't know, you know, with my future as a financial advisor, right? In this world of that's ever so changing, you know, I have to be open-minded to changes in the future, right? In the way that I do business and the way that I communicate with people. And I'll give you a great example of this. COVID. In a blink of an eye, the whole entire globe changed, right? With a virus that could potentially kill us all, unfortunately, But while we got out of it in March or April of 2020, I didn't know if I was going to be in business. I didn't have a clue. We used to use paper applications. We used to meet with clients face to face. Being from New York, I used to drive to the boroughs and meet 5 clients in a day and work 10 hours a day. And next thing you know, they say, well, you have to stay home. You know, but we still have to work and, make a living and help clients and everything else. So with that came a lot of changes and adjustments, right? And it's like how we're meeting today, right? Zoom came about and Microsoft Teams and all these, technological platforms that we adapted to very quickly, which actually made things a lot easier for us, right? And we became more adaptable to change. So I believe that another event like that could happen in the future, or the way we do business and the way we communicate with people can also change in the future. So I have to be open-minded to that. So having the ability to flex, always being coachable, always being teachable, being optimistic. If I would have told myself in 2015, when I first started in the business, look, we don't know especially, being a younger financial advisor, I definitely had some great guidance, but I didn't know if this was going to be my full-time career, right? I didn't know if I was going to make a change. God honest truth is I don't like change. I'm sorry, I like change enhancements. I don't like to change my career. I've been in the same same company my entire career. I've never changed offices. Now Shatarah was bought out, our previous company. But I digress. But yeah, going back to your question, I think this coachable, that's the word I'm looking for. I hope that answers the question. I digress a little bit there.
Yeah, no, you brought some great points, and I think, listen, our bodies are designed in a way where, and I'll put it this way, our brain thinks only about one thing. It thinks about survival and keeping us safe. So when something happens that we're not used to, we don't want to change. Like that's just naturally who we are as human beings. We don't like to change. So often when we're going through change, usually it's either a conscious decision that we make to change, that we make a decision, hey, from now on, I'm going to do this. And we just kind of came into the new year. There's a lot of people that are all gang ho, going to the gym and taking care of themselves. And about, by now they're like, what, gym membership? Yeah, I think I'm still paying for it, but I haven't used it in the last 2 weeks. So people kind of go and make that decision, or change is thrusted upon them. And I think what you just mentioned, COVID, yeah, COVID completely changed every facet of our life drastically, and things have and will never go back to what it was. I'm sure at the beginning people are thinking, I just want to get things back to the way they were. You need to realize that things don't ever go back. I think you brought up like Zoom as we're using this tool right now on this call. I was looking at it like what happened with COVID, being in the business for several years. Uh, it's like what was I was thinking, hey, this is going to happen 5 or 10 years from now, literally happened overnight. Like you mentioned, you had to learn how to operate your business differently. I personally believe that financial advice was an essential service. And it was one of those things that, hey, you still had to go and get advice because during that time, you're not only a financial planner and you have somebody do a plan, essentially, you are a coach for people. You're sometimes a therapist for people. You're marriage counselor for people. I mean, there is a lot of hats that you're kind of wearing there because you're there to hold people's hands and say, hey, we've got this plan. Went and put it together. What has changed? Well, if nothing internally has changed, why do you want to go and change the plan? If there is something in external that has changed that is affecting your internal things, yeah, now we need to go and look at it. But again, they need to go and assess it and see exactly what's happening. Unfortunately, people did a lot of things where they started panicking, especially when it comes down to investments in the market and everything. I mean, yeah, with the market, things go down, things go up. There are certain ways that people can do, and I think you alluded to that when it comes down to with your philosophy on planning. Hey, do you have some guaranteed income? Because once you have set up your guaranteed income in your retirement, you don't really care what that number is at the day you retire because you already know what's going to be coming in.
Right.
So as you kind of think about your business, and you mentioned you've been in it for the last 10 years and the impact that you've had, what's kind of the long-term vision that you're working towards for both of you, your clients, and your family?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. I'll start with my family first because that's the first thing that came to mind. I'm married, I'm a father, I have a 9-month-old, and I have another one on the way in July. A
Congratulations.
girl. Thank you so much. Very exciting things are happening in my world at this point in time. And this business has, and my clients, well, first, I can't thank my clients enough for allowing me to live a wonderful lifestyle. First, to me, while this is a job and a career, it doesn't actually feel like it. I enjoy going, putting a suit on every day, and I enjoy the conversations I have. I enjoy the art, and I enjoy the science of financial planning. So it doesn't feel exhausting to me. It actually empowers me to speak to people. So I envision a long life of this, with many enhancements and changes along the way. I see Dandara Wealth Management growing as a firm where we're hiring other advisors, and other support staff to build us as a brand. And I see our clients growing with us. I see our clients obviously taking our advice and with the appreciation of the market and our philosophies that they're living a wonderful life of dignity and retirement and fun. And they see Dandara Wealth Management as almost a household brand that they can share with their family and friends. And they can look back and say, if it wasn't for Dominic and Stephan, my retirement wouldn't be the same. So we're very convicted to the work that we do, and we're happy to do it, and we love to do it, and love to continue to do it for many, many years to come.
Awesome. No, that's great. And again, all of that you talked about change and all that stuff, adapting to it. Yeah, nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow, but again, you gotta have to have that vision. So as we're wrapping up here, if you could share one key takeaway with listeners about achieving financial goals and building a legacy, what would that be?
I would say to the listeners, sorry, write down your goals, make them real, write them on a piece of paper, write them on a whiteboard, write them on the notes section in your phone, read them, believe in them, and they will happen. Because I believe when it comes to goals, you need to manifest that, right? And feel as if they're right in front of you. But then, build a plan, right? And have dedication, have consistency, have discipline. And I can assure you that no matter what goal it is, no matter how ambitious you think it is, you will accomplish it.
Yeah, you bring an important point when it comes down to goal and kind of goal setting. You mentioned write them down, because what you're actually doing is you're taking something from the unseen world. We all have ideas and things that we want to do, and they're in our head. But
Yeah.
until we actually go and write them down, they're just kind of dreams. They're not really goals. And when you write them down, you put them into the physical realm, and now you can actually look at them again a little bit more from a different perspective. And I think what's also important that people put a little bit more emotion, like ask yourself, why do I want that? We kind of coming back to, traditions and things that people do because they have learned it from their parents or from the past. So often people do things and they don't even know why. They don't really understand where that decision is coming from. And they might have a goal that may not even be their goal. It might be a goal that maybe their parents have and they're striving towards it. And let's just say that they go and achieve it. And I've seen this so often where people suddenly become disappointed because they've achieved something that they didn't even want, but they thought that that's what they were after. And their whole life, they were kind of chasing after it without really asking themselves the question, why is this important to me? Why do I want this? Why am I going after that? And I think working with a financial planner like yourself, you can be a little bit of that soundboard, asking them that question, like, hey, why do you want to have this goal? Like, there is a certain number. Everybody's got this number in their head that, hey, when I retire, I want to have this. So many people don't ask themselves the question, why? And then maybe go even further asking, so what would happen if you did get it? And what would happen if you didn't? And that would be a very interesting exercise for individuals to do to really start asking themselves that question, why they do what they do.
Excellent.
Yeah. So, Stephan, how can listeners learn more about you, the work that you do, and get in touch with you if they're interested in your service?
Yeah, excellent question. We're all over social media. You can stop on our website, dandarawealthmanagement.com. If you'd like to have a free consultation, phone call, conversation with us, we have a scheduling tool right on our website. There's also some cool, we have an ebook on our website. We have some great videos, some great information, what have you. But yeah, we're more than happy to speak to anybody, no matter what their situations are. We don't have real investment minimums. We try not to put limitations on the people that we speak to. So you can start with there. And if you don't mind, can I share my phone number? And
Yeah, you can go ahead, share it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm at 516-494-3451. That's my direct line. It goes right to my cell phone, right to my work phone. And like I said, I'm an open book to anyone listening today that would love to have a conversation.
Yeah. Again, you bring it out to it's all about a personal building a relationship with somebody, having a conversation. That's really what starts something. Stephan, thank you for sharing your insights and your experience with us today. It's been a pleasure having you on the Finance Leaders podcast. And I'm confident that our listeners have gained valuable takeaways about building their financial confidence and creating long-term strategies, and really understanding that they can leave a meaningful legacy. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the Finance Leader podcast for more conversations with thought leaders shaping the financial industry. Until next time, take care and keep building your financial future on solid foundation.
Thank you so much, Daniel. I really appreciate the time.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Finance Leaders Retirement Insights.